Big Muff, Rams Head. This is one of the most sought after Big Muffs around. And my dad found this thing at a garage sale in Austin, Texas. He paid $2 for this thing. Now, it doesn't work, but I'm gonna do what I do best, and I'm gonna bring this thing back to life. In case you don't know who I am, I'm Robert Saldana. I love to fix audio equipment, guitar pedals, amplifiers, pretty much everything that I can get my hands on. And whenever you find gems like this, I don't really worry whether they work or not, because if it does become a project, it's no big deal to me because the end result is always a success. Make sure and stay to the end because I'll be doing some audio samples with this pedal. Make sure and stomp that like button and click subscribe because I'll be pushing some more content very soon. Now let's see what we're working with. This is our Big Muff pie. It's missing some knobs. That's okay. As long as we have our pots, we should be okay. I don't know if anything works at all. In this one, it actually has an on and off switch. There is no power in. I'm actually going to have to use this converter to use my power supply. No big deal. Now this one did not have any screws, so they may have started to work on it. So let's just pop this guy out. Put this aside. And this is kind of what we're working with. We see that we have some wires that are just exposed for the battery. So we need to fix that. Probably close these up with some heat shrink. And we have that loose wire right there. I don't know where it goes. I'm gonna have to look it up and find out. Maybe I can find a schematic and tell me where that's supposed to go, because I don't see any broken solder points anywhere. It looks like the power is connected. It's a simple switch, hoping that we have continuity. So I'm just gonna check really quick. Right now it's on this position, so that looks good. Okay, so the switch works. Let me check this switch. Okay, so that's grounded, that's why. I'm not familiar with this circuit yet, so I know that this is volume. So volume is connected out here. And then from that switch, I should have, and this is ground. Okay, so this is signal. Signal's coming in here, and it's coming into volume. Now this is input. Input's right here, but I have no connections. It's not. No continuity at all. This switch is not working. So this switch is bad. I need to get a new switch for this thing. That's number one. Number two, I need to figure out where this wire goes and then make sure that it's all correct. So we have input, output. Output is going to the switch. Okay, so right now it looks like the switch is connected because this is output. And if I click, there's nothing. If I click it again, that looks really good. So it looks like the switch is working. Okay, so upon further investigation, this switch is not working. It actually has a crack, and it took me a while to see it, but this has a crack in it. It's intermittent. Basically, the switch switches back from the circuit to clean. So this wire here comes to the switch. When it's pressed off, or on this side, these two will be connected, and then this will go out to your output signal. So it's a true bypass. And then when you click it on, the signal from here, which is coming out of your volume, that goes to your output. So it's a true bypass switch. I need to replace that, and I still need to figure out where this goes. Now, I have a feeling that it goes here, but I'm not 100% sure. Because if this is my input signal, then I don't have an input signal in my circuit. This looks like it's a loose wire, probably going to be my input signal. So Let me investigate a little bit more. So this is what it looks like. Super awesome. It looks like this wire is connected to R2. Now I looked it up online. R2 is connected to our input signal, so I need to attach that. But I'm a little worried because these pots, I'm not sure if they're 100% working. This one looks like it was opened. And it could just be that it was old or maybe it got hit, but it's not clamped down all the way. So that worries me a little bit. Possible that somebody opened them and tried to clean them, but I'm gonna clamp them down. So the first thing I'm going to do is resolder that wire. Hopefully I don't need to change anything else, and order a new switch. I'm going to put some solder on the tip of that, and then I'm going to solder it to this point here. So I have a 3P DT switch that I'm going to use on this pedal. I'm actually also going to use this AMZ breadboard that goes along with it to make things a little bit easier. These things make things a little convenient as far as your input and output of your board, and that way you don't have to cut extra wire and make a mess of this. First I'm going to add these two together, and then I'm going to redo the wiring, and also I'm going to make this battery connector a little bit cleaner with some heat shrink. Okay, so now that I have all this ready, I just need to make sure I wire this thing correctly. So this should be pretty easy. This is input, so this is my input signal. So I'm going to connect that here. This is my output that's distorted, so I'm going to put that over here on B. And then my main output is going to be this one that's connected to here. A is what's going into the board. So A is my input signal that's going to go to the board. So that's this white one. Now this one I'm going to have to replace. I need a longer wire to make it reach over here. No big deal. And of course the heat shrink on these two wires. And I'll put some heat shrink on this one because the wire's exposed a little bit. Now I can actually do some more stuff, like, you know, wire the switch to this, but I'm not going to do that. I want to keep things as original as possible, even though, you know, this is not an original part. I'm going to leave everything else the same. So I'm not going to drill into this. I'm going to try to keep it as original as possible. So I'll be hand tightening just this for now. Okay, so I got it in. I'll work my way this way, so I have my input. Here's the old switch. There's a crack in here. That's what was causing the problem. Alright, so this is our input. It's coming from our input signal. It might be a little difficult, but I'm going to see if I can try to get the wires underneath. Input's done. This one's going directly to the output, so I'm going to connect this on O. Always check your solder points after you're done. Make sure they look good. Now this is the one I need heat shrink on. Okay, so I have my heat shrink tube and I'm going to cover up this black wire that's a little exposed. Strip it and then connect this. This is my main output, so that's actually going to go to B over here, but put this in. And you always want to make sure that when you heat this up, you're heating the pad and your wire at the same time. You get a nice joint. Make sure your solder iron is not too hot. So far everything looks good. I do need to connect a ground wire here. This is my ground over here. Okay, so for my A, which is my input signal, which is going to go into the board, it's actually a short wire. So I'm going to need 2 wires to make sure that I connect this correctly. I need one that's going to go to my input to the board, and then one of them to ground, so I need to find some wire for that. Okay, so I have my 22 gauge wire. This one's going to go to ground, so I'm going to do that one first. Before I put it on, I want to make sure that I put solder on both ends. This is going to make it easier to connect. And this is going to connect to ground, so I'm just going to connect it right here. And since there's already solder on this, it should bond pretty easily. If I need to add more solder, I will. That looks so much better. It actually looks like it joined it very well. Pretty proud of that one. Next is going to be this wire here. This is our input that's going into the board. I need to connect that to A. For this one I'll be using a white wire, 22 gauge. I'll do the same thing I did before with the other wire. I will put some solder on both ends. So I'm going to remove this white wire. We don't need it anymore. First I'll remove it off the board. I'm going to find the thinnest one from this end and I'm going to put it into the A. And we're almost done. There's already solder on here, so I'm not going to add any more. Okay, so we have everything connected. Just going to snip the extra wire here. Now I'm going to fix this battery wire. Now this wire looks a little cooked, so I'm going to actually cover this as well. think this wire is more fitting. So I covered this, and then I'm going to use this one to cover this side, but you got to make sure that when you put your heat shrink on, you kind of put it far away from where you're going to solder, because you don't want it to shrink ahead where it's supposed to. I'm going to put some solder on all these tips. Now that there's solder on both ends, you should be able to join these wires very easily. Perfect. I always like to join these wires very clean, so that when I put the heat shrink, it just goes straight over it. Perfect. You can just do a little pull to make sure that it's bonded. There's more than one way to do that, but that's the way I like to do it. Alright, there you go. Next thing I need to do. Alright, next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use this heat shrink gun. I'm going to use it on the lowest setting, which is 430 to 570 Fahrenheit. It's a pretty good gun. So I'm just going to blow on these heat shrink tubes until they go to their final resting place. Okay, so I've completed all of the circuit updates that I'm going to do with this pedal. We added a new switch. We redid the wiring for this new switch. I'm going to leave this out for now as I do some tests. So I'm going to use this converter and connect it to my power supply. Let's see how this thing sounds. Alright, so this is a clean tone. I'm playing out of a Fender Mustang and a Fender DeVille. So the volume is very low. So I've maxed the volume out all the way, and it seems like the volume is very low on this one. I'm going to mess with the tone and sustain a little bit. I'm going to raise the volume on the amp just a notch. If I go all the way to the other, and I'll move it back to about halfway. Actually, I think this is the sweet spot. Just enough low end, just enough high end. Now for sustain, sounds pretty dead. But right there, it's where it starts to pick up. That sounds really good. That's maxed all the way. I'm going to raise the volume a little bit more on the amp. A little bit of noise, probably because I'm next to the amp. Yeah. So I'm going to go through each note and just kind of play an A major chord. I'm going to move it back to the middle, play the same thing. I'm going to move it 9 o'clock. So I think that this is probably the sweet spot. So one thing I wanted to try was how it affects high notes. So I'm going to put some more gain on that. I'm going to go and max it out. I'm going to show you the clean again. Very loud. So there's a huge volume drop on here. I don't know, maybe like 6 decibels. So there you have it. I brought this thing back to life. I'm going to research this a little bit more, see what I could do about the volume, maybe do an update on this one. Alright everyone, so I brought this thing back to life. I'm not 100% happy with this thing though. I want to do some more research and maybe try to get the volume a little bit louder on this. And that way there's not a huge difference between your clean and your dirty tone. So I hope you guys enjoyed me working on this. If you found some great steals at some yard sales or possibly eBay, please comment in the chat. Tell me what you guys have found. This is not the first find that my father has found in Austin, so you Austin folks, you have some really good gear. Make sure and stomp that like button, subscribe, as I'll be pushing some more related content very soon. I'll see you guys in the next one.